as on your behalf. What huper means is beautifully explained in this key verse, which I'm putting up in this box. Huper is beautifully expressed on your behalf in 2 Corinthians 5:14 and 15. Why do I say that huper is beautifully expressed in terms of meaning on your behalf in 2 Corinthians 5:14 and 15? Because in 2 Corinthians 5:14 we read that the love of Christ controls us, because we are convinced that one man died on behalf of all people. Now we understand so far one man died on behalf of all people. But the meaning of that is given in the rest of verse 14. What is the meaning of that? That one man died for all people. Well, not for, but as all people. Because huper means on your behalf. Meaning it's as if Jesus represented the sinner, as if the sinner was getting the very death that Jesus physically got. Okay? So, again, 2 Corinthians 5:14, the love of Christ controls us because we're convinced that one man died on behalf of all people. Well, the meaning of on behalf of is given in the rest of verse 14, which says that because he died on behalf of all people, therefore all people died. In other words, Jesus died on behalf of all people. Well, the Greek meaning of huper in English is that on behalf of involves a certain legal representation, so that even though the sinner wasn't physically there on the cross, the sinner was legally represented on the cross, because what Jesus was going to experience in death was not going on his own account. Why? Because in Exodus 23:7, he's the innocent and the righteous man. And God says in the law of Moses, don't put that guy to death. Jesus is going to the cross on behalf of all the people that are in the category of Romans 3:23, all have sinned and all fall short of God's glory. Everybody in that category of Romans 3:23, all have sinned and all fall short of God's glory, is the crowd that Jesus went to the cross on behalf of. So when he went to the cross on behalf of all people, 2 Corinthians 5:14 indicates the legal effect of his death. And that is that all people died. And when all people died, because they were represented by the one who died not to take credit for his death, because he didn't have any sin to pay for, he died to give credit to the sinner, as if the sinner died for his or her own sin. Why? 2 Corinthians 5:14, the love of Christ controls us because we're convinced that one died on behalf of all people, and therefore all people died. In other words, all people got credit for dying for their own sin. Because when Jesus died on behalf of them, he didn't take credit for having died in a legal sense. He just physically got crucified and rose again. But in a legal sense, the sinner was put to death. Because what he did was on behalf of the sinner, not on behalf of himself, who is the innocent and righteous man of Exodus 23:7 that's not supposed to die. So 2 Corinthians 5:14 is indicating that one man died on behalf of everybody. Therefore, everybody that he died on behalf of is given credit for having died, meaning that they're forgiven. Because once you've died, then the charges are dropped against you. This is something that's also mentioned in Romans 6, verse 7. Romans 6, verse 7 indicates that the Greek word acquitted, or not guilty, or King James would often say in other verses justified. But the contextual meaning of this same word for justified in Romans 6:7 is acquittal, not guilty. Once a person has died, the person is acquitted. The charges are dropped. They're forgiven. Why are they forgiven? Because in 2 Corinthians 5:14, one man died on behalf of them, meaning that everyone got credit for having died as if they died for their own sins, meaning that Jesus came into the world and upheld the justice of God, which was to pronounce the death penalty on the sinner and fulfill that death penalty on behalf of the sinner, so that the sinner doesn't simply get off the hook, the legal hook of having to die. The sinner does in fact die. And that death upholds the law that requires that the sinner does in fact die. But Jesus accomplished it because he died on behalf of the sinner. And it was Jesus' death on behalf of the sinner that upheld the law, that the sinner got justice, execution, but at the same time got forgiveness. And when the sinner got that forgiveness, then it means that Romans 5:15 kicked in. That the grace of God overflowed to everybody. The gift of forgiveness overflowed to everybody. But at the same time, the justice of God was upheld. Because God didn't let the sinner off the hook. The sinner died on the cross. Why? Because Jesus died on behalf of the sinner, giving the sinner credit for having died. And this is beautiful because it means that the justice of God is upheld, but at the same time, Romans 5:15 says that the gift of God, the grace of God, has overflowed to all the people that got a raw deal in Adam. Well, now they've got good news that needs to be heard by proclamation to everybody that is beneficiary of this good news, which is everyone. Romans 5:15, but the gift is not like the trespass, for if the many died, but the trespass of the one man, how much more did God's grace and the gift given by the grace of the one man overflow to the same people through the one man, Jesus Christ?